Michael Jackson had been whispering it for weeks. They're after me.
I knew something terrible would happen at the end, not to mention the fact that Michael constantly told me, Latoya, if I die, they're going to murder me, they're going to kill me.
Those closest to him recall how his eyes no longer carried the thrill of performance, but the fear of pursuit.
What has it done to your career?
What has it done to my career?
What has it done to your career?
In what way?
How has it impacted
my
touring, record
album's
sales?
¡1 all over the world. All over the world. America's the only one because, I don't want to say too much.
But it's not #1 in the United States.
It's conspiracy, yeah. I don't want to say too much. I'm done. I don't want to say much because I'm hurting. I'm really hurting.
He was the king of pop, a global icon. But behind the fame, Michael Jackson was a man at war, not with another artist, but with the music industry itself. He didn't just accuse the label, he named people.
Tommy Mottola is a devil.
Tommy Mottola, the then chairman of Sony Music, was described by Jackson as devilish and racist. Few artists would dare say such things, but Michael, he had nothing to lose and everything to protect.
Tradition of great performers from Sammy Davis Jr. to James Brown to Jackie Wilson to Fred Astaire, Gene Kelly. The story is usually the same though, these guys work really hard at their craft, but the story ends the same. They usually are broken, torn, and usually just sad. And the story is very sad in the end because the companies take advantage of them.
Days before his demise on June 9th, 2009, Jackson grew increasingly paranoid.
No, my friends. No, gotta let it simmer. It's got a moment where it has to simmer.
That's right.
Not letting it simmer. You just bathe in the moonlight. You have to let it simmer a bit,
Yeah.
But not everyone saw Jackson as a victim.
You know what? I mean, all the things ever printed in the tabloid, the only thing ever been true is when they said I couldn't dance.
It
when we were here the last time shooting the commercial, you were like in between shots, running off, conceiving the dance, choreographing the dance. You were up all night dancing.
Some believed he was once a part of the very force he later spoke out against, the Illuminati. It's a name whispered for decades, a secret society of elites said to control the media, the music industry, and the messages we consume. And Michael, he fit the profile: unmatched global influence, a mysterious personal life, and a growing obsession with symbolism, like the ever-famous cover of the music album Dangerous. The theory goes, Michael made a deal, rose to the top, but then tried to walk away. And when he did, the system turned against him. He even told his friends and family that he thought powerful forces were closing in on him. He believed they were part of secret societies operating outside of the public eye. He would talk in low voices about feeling watched, controlled, and silenced.
Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you so very much. Thank you, NSYNC. I am so proud to call you my friends. You're all so wonderful. This is such a tremendous honor, and I am so happy to be here. The glamorous and talented and beautiful Diana Ross, who is my second mother, I thank you. Tommy Mottola, Sony, I love you. Thank you, the fans. Thank you. Bye.
But what came next was never explained. This audio, recorded just weeks before his demise, recorded Michael Jackson at his most vulnerable state. Disoriented, somber, expressing visions of a children's hospital and a childhood lost. He had all the hope that was needed for the world, but unfortunately couldn't act on it.
I love them. I love them because I didn't have a childhood. I had no childhood. I feel their pain. I feel their hurt. I hurt, I hurt.
Dr. Conrad Murray, Jackson's personal doctor, had started recording him in private while he was sedated and in a really fragile state. It was a drug so powerful it's typically only used to sedate patients during surgery. When Jackson's heart stopped in a rented Los Angeles mansion on 25th June 2009, official reports labeled it accidental medical negligence. But to some, it looked more like a cover story, because almost instantly sales of his music exploded. Sony, the same company Jackson had publicly attacked, profited more after he passed than they had in years of keeping him alive. His sister dropped hints about shady connections with groups he had called out in his last interviews, groups he believed were hurting artists and taking their legacies.
LaToya, they're gonna kill me. I said, who, Michael? First I thought you're Michael Jackson. Nobody in their right mind would ever think of doing anything like this to you. That's what you think. He says, no, but you don't understand. And then I saw how serious he was. He said, it's bigger than what you think. I said, well, Michael, what is it? He said, it's my publishing. They're after my publishing. They want to take it. As you guys know, my brother had one of the largest catalogs in the world, meaning music-wise.
Some people even suggested that in his final days, he was really pushing back the demonic system of Illuminati. They even believe his last phone calls were intercepted, deleted, scrubbed before they could be traced. This pattern is what attracted conspiracies. It's a pattern. The public was told it was an accident, but everything surrounding his final days suggests something else. Michael Jackson wasn't just taken from the world, he was removed, and he may not have been the first or the last. Tupac has lived a quite similar story.
How force my strength, my mind strength. That's what's more important to me now. To see that there's not no accident. I plotted every single step from this to this.
Right.
You know what I mean? Everything's plotted.
Tell that you that the next is called Illuminati, because that's really what the Illuminati is on.
That's why I put the K through it. Because I went, the niggas telling me about the Illuminati shit while I'm in jail, right? Like, dollars, nothing.
Right.
That's another way to keep yourself safe. That's another way to keep you unconfident.
Right.
And I'm putting the K because I'm that Illuminati.
On September 7th, 1996, Tupac Shakur was gunned down in Las Vegas. He passed away 6 days later, but it was on the 7th day that rumors began. People speculated, and there were several outcomes of those speculations. This wasn't random. This wasn't street crime. It was a ritual, one planned by forces Tupac had been trying to expose for months. Under the name Machiavelli, Tupac released his last album called The Don Illuminati, The 7-Day Theory. It was packed with apocalyptic art featuring images of crucifixion, crosses, and some pretty cryptic warnings. A lot of people believe this album signed his warrant for an end, a bold challenge to an elite group that wanted him quiet. The night he was taken down has left investigators scratching their heads since then. Surveillance cameras at one of the busiest spots in Vegas mysteriously went dark. Witnesses reported more shots fired than the car showed.
To keep it for the code of the streets. It just came from the backseat for him.
Some even whispered that Suge Knight was the real target, either being manipulated by higher powers or being the real target that Tupac unknowingly protected. Even strangely, Tupac was cremated within 24 hours by a cremator who supposedly disappeared right after. But the real twist came when the sightings started, and then the sightings began. Havana, Guadalajara, Belgrade. Rumors claimed Tupac had faked his demise, escaping a powerful hit by the Illuminati. Even Suge Knight later said Pac's somewhere smoking a Cuban cigar.
Be smart, son, because Tupac not dead. Tupac not dead. If he was dead, they'd be arresting those dudes for murder. You know he was somewhere smoking a Cuban cigar.
On top of all that, declassified documents revealed Tupac had been under the watch of the FBI and CIA for years. Others think it's all just myth. But if the Illuminati really did want Tupac gone, why do so many believe he's still out there, watching, waiting, surviving? What do you think? Was Tupac silenced, or did he outplay the system? If this already has you questioning everything you thought you knew, pause for a second and hit subscribe, because what comes next will change the way you see the world forever.
Investigation into the fiery wreck that killed actor Paul Walker and his friend Roger Rodas. Speed has been cited as a factor in the one-car crash. The Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department is checking for others. This picture of Walker next to the sports car was taken. It was taken at a fundraiser he organized to assist victims of the recent Philippines typhoon.
On November 30th, 2013, the world lost Paul Walker, star of the Fast and Furious franchise.
Brian was Paul Walker's actor's name in the Fast and the Furious. About a week and a half ago is when Brian and Family Guy died. So it's like a lot of people always say, like, these type of things always tend to be predicted by the media and the industry, aka you know who, right?
He and his friend Roger Rodas were found inside the wreckage of a Porsche Carrera GT. The headlines said it was high speed, a sharp turn, a tragic mistake. But for those who looked closer, the wreckage told a different and a much darker story.
First, him crashing into the tree and the car exploding, that doesn't really make sense to me. TMZ actually reporting a couple of days ago his death, so there was some kind of a hoax going on before.
5 days earlier, Family Guy aired an episode where the beloved character Brian, the same name as Paul's character in Fast and Furious, experienced a similar incident. The timing seemed way too spot on.
Anyway, I'll be right back.
Brian, look out!
Oh my God! Brian! Doctor, how is Brian? Is he gonna be okay?
I'm so sorry, Mrs. Griffin, but Brian's injuries are just too severe for us to save him. I don't know how much longer he has. That you all go in and say your goodbyes.
People called it predictive programming. It's like a hidden heads-up in movies and shows that hints at something big happening in real life. Back at the scene where it all unfolded, more questions surfaced. No access to the vehicle's black box. Flames burned hotter than gasoline normally allows. And remote hijacking technology proven to exist became a focus, especially after journalist Michael Hastings met a similar incident the exact same way earlier that year. But what really changed the conversation was what Paul Walker was working on behind the scenes. He was involved in uncovering the misuse of disaster relief funds, especially around the Haiti, and insiders claim he was getting close to revealing something massive. And then just days later, he was gone. After Paul, the marketing for Furious 7 was filled with pyramid-shaped sunsets, one-eyed visuals, and lyrics that sounded less like tributes and more like coded farewells.
Hey, thought you could leave without saying goodbye.
I used to say I lived my life a quarter mile at a time. And I think that's why we were brothers, because you did too. No matter where you are,
Damn, who knew?
you'll always be with me.
Good things we've been through, that I'll be standing right here talking to you.
At this point, it doesn't feel random. Michael, Tupac, Paul, icons who looked behind the curtain and paid the price for what they saw. Some believe Paul Walker wasn't heading toward an accident that day. He was heading straight into something planned. He was a powerhouse on screen, a whirlwind of energy who moved like lightning and had a way of thinking that inspired millions. But on July 20th, 1973, Bruce Lee was found unresponsive in actress Betty Ting Pei's apartment in Hong Kong. Officially, they said he passed away from cerebral edema, swelling in the brain supposedly triggered by an allergic reaction to a basic painkiller. But as soon as the news broke, whispers started going around that something much darker had happened. For months, Lee had been dealing with headaches and odd seizures. Doctors chalked it up to stress, but Lee felt something else, like he was being watched, hunted. When his brain was examined, it was found to be swollen by over 13%, far more than what aspirin or tranquilizers could explain. His close friend Raymond Chow even explained it as an incident that was caused by misadventure, but he avoided further autopsies, even as people were demanding answers. Conspiracy theories began to flood in. Some people claimed he got on the wrong side of the Chinese triads after refusing to cough up part of his film earnings. Others believed the Lee family was cursed, haunted by a dark energy that Bruce's mother had warned him about since childhood. Bruce's mother had chillingly mentioned since he was a kid that he felt like a demon was after him. But then came something darker. Rumors that the Illuminati had approached Bruce Lee at the peak of his fame, that they wanted him to embed subliminal messages and psychological triggers in his films to influence the youth. Allegedly, Bruce refused, and the consequence was quiet, clean, lethal. Today, his body rests in Seattle, but many believe what happened to Bruce Lee wasn't natural, as he was silenced. And if that's true, then what happened to his son, Brandon Lee, nearly 20 years later on a film set, under bizarre circumstances, wasn't coincidence. It was a message. One name, 2 generations, taken before their time, by forces we still can't name. Still watching? Good. That means you're ready for the secrets most people can't handle. Make sure you're subscribed and notifications are on before this video reveals the evidence they've spent decades trying to bury. This was the recording he made just weeks before he was assassinated.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
That chilling audio captured President John F. Kennedy seriously warning about ruthless, monolithic conspiracies and secret societies working in the shadows. Some people believe those words were more than just a speech. They were a warning he knew could cost him his life. And tragically, it did. On November 22, 1963, JFK's motorcade turned through Dealey Plaza, and in the blink of an eye, the president was gone. The official story blamed it on Lee Harvey Oswald, the lone gunman who was firing from behind. But witnesses on the ground described something else entirely. They saw flashes, they saw smoke coming from the grassy knoll. And just like that, the lone gunman theory began to fall apart. The notorious magic bullet theory, which claims one bullet somehow traveled through multiple people. To many, this wasn't an explanation. It was a cover-up, and it begs the question, who wanted JFK gone? Researchers suggest JFK was marked for elimination as soon as he challenged the system. He signed Executive Order 11,110, aiming to reduce the Federal Reserve's power. He threatened to pull troops out of Vietnam. He planned to dismantle the CIA after the Bay of Pigs incident. Each of these moves shook the very foundation of the global elites, bankers, arms dealers, intelligence agencies, the exact kind of forces long whispered about in Illuminati theories. And then there are the symbolic clues. Dealey Plaza was built on a former Masonic temple site with strange shapes associated with ritual sacrifice and rebirth all around it. Years later, declassified documents pointed fingers at high-level CIA agent E. Howard Hunt, allegedly tied to a broader conspiracy known only as the Company. Yet 60 years on, the most important files are still classified, still sealed, still buried. And when you go back to that final speech, it doesn't sound like a president giving a speech. It sounds like a man trying to speak to the future, trying to warn us, and that might be the very reason he was silenced.
What made you decide to come to Texas?
The first shows that I worked was down here, man, around Houston.
Remember what
all over
locations you
Texas.
worked here in Texas?
Well, I worked Houston.
What do you think of Texas?
I like it. I like it.
Elvis Presley, who used to be sharp and full of life, was acting weird by 1977, slurring his words, seeming paranoid, and just really withdrawn in front of others. Friends said it wasn't about being sick, but more about the stress he was under. But her fiancée, Ginger Alden, said Elvis was lively and in a good mood, just hours before he was supposedly found unconscious at Graceland. The way she talked made it sound like she was keeping some things to herself, rather than really grieving.
He was never bored. He didn't act down. We laughed. We watched television. He played the organ in his room. Sometimes we went out. We rode three-wheelers. He had these great fun three-wheelers. We went motorcycle riding.
Then came the sightings. That famous photo of a bearded guy calling himself John Burroughs, which was Elvis's known alias. went viral. Loads of people claimed he was alive, just sneaking around the world he once ruled. The FBI files just added fuel to the fire. Declassified documents showed that Presley was somehow involved in Operation Fountain Pen, a federal sting aimed at taking down big crime syndicates. If he was working undercover, did the Bureau fake it all to keep him safe when things got too hot? Former FBI agent hinted that Elvis was more involved than anyone thought, and the theories keep piling up. On his grave, his middle name is misspelled, a detail fans say was deliberate. Some believe it's not even his real grave at all. Was Elvis running from the spotlight, or running from the same shadows that seem to haunt every icon who got too close to the truth? On December 8, 1980, Lennon got out of his limo in front of the Dakota Apartments in New York. A fan, Mark David Chapman, came up to him asking for an autograph. Hours later, when Lennon was returning home with Yoko Ono, Chapman stepped out of the shadows and took him from the back. Lennon fell to the ground and was declared deceased by the time they got to the hospital.
Came up behind him and called to him, Mr. Lennon, as he arrived at that doorway. And then in a combat stance, he emptied the Charter Arms .38 caliber gun that he had with him and shot John Lennon.
John Lennon can't be dead.
4 cops pulled John Lennon out and put him into the back of a police car, and he was bleeding from his mouth, and it was a terrible sight.
The official story was that Chapman was just a crazed fan who snapped after Lennon made that infamous comment about the Beatles being more popular than Jesus.
If it had said television is more popular than Jesus, I might have got away with it. They used the word Beatles as a remote thing, not as what I think, as Beatles as though those other Beatles like other people see us. I just said they are having more influence on kids and things than anything else, including Jesus, but I said it in that way, which is the wrong way.
But some conspiracy theorists believe that Chapman wasn't just an obsessed fan. They think he was brainwashed. They link this to MK Ultra, the CIA's secret mind control program, suggesting Chapman was conditioned to take Lennon, similar to the rumors about Lee Harvey Oswald and JFK. Even crazier thing is, the way he sat calmly waiting to be arrested added to the idea that something more ritualistic was going on, rather than just a crazy outburst.
While the headlines tried to satisfy the public's need to understand, there was a more private battle going on over the content of Chapman's mind. The prosecution believed he killed Lennon to become famous, the defense because he was insane. The psychiatrists disagreed. Before them was a young killer who knew he was Mark Chapman, but also claimed he was the personification of a fictional character.
But why go after Lennon? Because he was becoming too influential. With his anti-war protests and sharp interviews critiquing corrupt governments, Lennon was rallying a lot of people. FBI documents confirmed he was being watched closely. To some, it was surveillance. To others, it was preparation. By taking Lennon out, right outside his home, in front of people, many think the Illuminati were sending a message. Officially, it was just a lone madman. But if Chapman was just a pawn, then the real question is, who was pulling the strings? Michael, Tupac, Paul, Bruce, JFK, Elvis, Lennon. They were more than just celebrities. They were voices, each from a different world. Yet somehow, their fate echo the same pattern. Some say it's all coincidence. Others believe it's part of something deeper, a system that punishes those who speak too loudly or get too close to the truth. And if that's really true, then the question isn't just who silenced them, it's how many more are still being watched. And maybe, just maybe, we were never supposed to notice, because the more we look into it, the creepier the patterns seem to get.